This is Chris Elliott with Remax Action Real Estate coming at you today with another real estate quick tip, not so quick tip. Today I have my good friend and colleague, Mr. Michael Douglas of Richmond Insurance Services. Michael is not only my personal insurance rep, but he's also who I send the majority of my clients to when they're purchasing a home to shop for their insurance, and also, if they just want to review their insurance and kind of review their options there. So what I wanted to do was to bring Michael on today as the insurance expert to really talk about homeowners insurance. Sorry, Mike, but definitely not the sexiest thing to talk about, probably not the most fun thing in the process, but something that's absolutely important, because when you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a piece of real estate, on your home, on a house that you're going to make your home, insurance becomes a very important topic, and it's something you need to think seriously about. And usually, Mike, you tell me, you tend to talk with the clients, but what I find is there's just so much going on during a home purchase. Insurance usually tends to hit the back burner, and it's kind of just something people feel like they have to get done, but it's not something that people probably spend enough time on thinking about and talking about, myself included. Would you agree with that statement?
No doubt about it. I definitely don't have the most glamorous job in the world, that's for sure, but it's something that everybody's got to have, no matter if you like it or not. It's one of those things that does come along with the home buying process, and it definitely gets pushed back to the end of the line typically, to where it can hold up a closing, but every mortgage company does require it.
Yeah, not your closings though, right? Just other insurance.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. All right, so got a couple things we want to hit on, but so Mike, let's start foundational. When we're talking about homeowners insurance, what are we talking about? What are we actually insuring? What are the different types of insurance people need to be thinking about? Kind of start from the beginning. Give us the basics of what we're chatting about today.
So, kind of making it easy to understand, the thing that insurance is covering there is just the house itself. Really, every home insurance company, all they care about is how much it's going to cost to rebuild that house. They don't necessarily care about purchase price, how much land you have on it. It really doesn't matter per se, because really all they care about is, again, what it's going to cost to rebuild that house if, God forbid, catches on fire and burns to the ground. So don't try to match that dwelling coverage up with your purchase price or necessarily your loan value. That's kind of the biggest misconception that I hear when we're seeing people look at dwelling coverage and saying, hey, this doesn't necessarily match up. Am I underinsured? Am I overinsured? That's our job as agents, really, to collect that data, and we have to plug in that information to each carrier that we work with and have the carrier kind of tell us what they think it's going to cost to rebuild each house.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong though, when you're talking about dwelling replacement, typically we're not worried, especially in our area, we're not worried about the land going anywhere. It's typically just the structure on the land that's usually at risk. But is that a safe assumption?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. The only time land comes into play really is if you're doing any sort of business on it, like farming. But other than that, typically land doesn't really have anything to do with it. Okay,
good deal. All right, so we talked about that. So is it just replacement insurance? Is that really anybody's ever looking at? Do we need to be thinking about the actual, possessions inside the home? Is that something different?
Definitely, it's included in each homeowner's policy, but it's a separate little line item there that is always included by a percentage. So typically you're going to have either 60 or 75% of your dwelling coverage included in there for your personal property.
Okay.
So normally that's going to be enough. However, most carriers don't let you lower that personal property under those percentages amounts, whatever their threshold is, but you can always raise them if you feel like you got more belongings. But specifically speaking, jewelry. Most have some sort of jewelry in there. There's going to be a limit with most carriers, whether it be $3,000 or $5,000 total for jewelry coverage that most carriers will have. So if you got a nice engagement ring, which is the most common thing we hear,
sure,
and it's worth over $3,000, for example, just generally speaking, you can add that specifically. It's called scheduling your jewelry. So you can send in your appraisal. We add it for whatever the value is on the appraisal, and that way that's actually on file. If something's either, we're talking lost or misplaced, of course, stolen, it's covered.
Sure. Okay. And I would assume too, like I remember I had a client that had an IT business that he, had a lot of equipment in his basement. I mean, if somebody's got some special circumstances like that, I would assume that's something that, they just want to mention to you and bring up and something you definitely want to make sure that you're getting included in your policy.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you have specific, some types of, musical instruments or artwork or whatever it may be, something out of the ordinary, mention it to your agent. It's not going to hurt. That's for sure. Just want to make sure that you add it on there because a lot of things do have limits to the coverages. So that way you can at least make sure it is covered if something were to happen.
Okay, good deal. So Mike, what are some of the maybe, so we talked about kind of some of the special things people need to look for, but what would you say are some of the common misconceptions or maybe places where you see people go wrong or questions that they should be asking that they're not, or things they should be thinking about that they're not when it comes talking about insurance in regards to real estate?
Well, similar to what I was saying, being upfront to your agent, you don't necessarily want to hide some things that are going on. If you're doing some renovations to your house, if you have some animals in the house, whatever it is, even if it's a cat, dog, whatever, mention it to your agent. You want to make sure that things are covered, especially if you got like a little home business in your house.
Sure.
You want to make sure that they know about it because it's going to be much worse off if you don't tell them about whatever's going on and then you have a claim that's related to it. Insurance companies are going to come out there and say, hey, we didn't know anything about it. We weren't charging the correct premium. Might be denied. I'm not saying that insurance companies try to get out of everything that they can, but
of course not.
They are in a business to protect themselves.
Sure.
So now if it's noted on the policy, then of course it's going to be covered. And that's the most important thing. And speaking of a home-based business or speaking of, a renovation going on in your house, it's not like it's going to double your premium or anything. It's just going to be a minor change to the policy that'll just make sure that you're covered.
Yeah. And I would assume that at the end of the day, the most important thing is if you're doing improvements, if you've got equipment or stuff like that, even though it might be a little bump in the premium, you want to have that stuff covered at the end of the day, I would assume.
Well, the worst thing that could ever happen is getting a phone call, and us mentioning something up front about, water, sewer and drain backup coverage or whatever coverage that it is that they, might be considering. It's adding $40, $50 a year and they say, no, I want to save money. And then next thing you know, they have a claim and they say, man, I wish I would have spent 30, 40, 50 bucks a year.
Yeah.
Cover this $10,000 claim that I just had. So
Sure.
It's absolutely, I'm not saying to buy every little bell and whistle that you can on a homeowner's policy, but everybody's situation is a little different. And that's up to your agent to help you understand what coverages are available and what you should have.
Sure. Okay. And so, Michael, I know you're an independent agent, and that means certain things. Can you kind of explain the difference between, maybe somebody like yourself versus somebody that's with one of the bigger brands like Allstate, State Farm, Geico, you name it?
Yeah. I guess I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but maybe I will a little bit here. But
Go ahead,
no matter who your independent agent, it's a good idea to speak to an independent agent, I should say, and for the reason that they're just able to shop for you. Of course, you have the ability to call around every company that you find. But the difference is that the independent agents really don't care. They typically handpick the carriers that they work with. So, whether it's with, company A or company C, they're good carriers that they feel comfortable with. So they're not going to try and sway you in one direction just because they like a carrier. If you're working with a captive agent, of course, they're pushing one company. They're going to push that one company regardless if it's actually the best option for you or if it is an actual competitive price.
Mm-hmm.
An independent agent, that's what their job is. It makes us feel good just being able to shop it for you. That's why we have jobs. So that's one thing that I do recommend doing is just talking to an independent agent and letting them help you out.
Sure. Okay. Awesome. And Michael, before we kind of head off here, I know you got to run. I appreciate your time. Any last words of wisdom that you want to leave our audience with? Anything else that we didn't hit on that you think people should know?
Again, with the shopping, I hate, putting more work on all these agents' shoulders, but it's always a good idea just to reevaluate. And every 3 to 5 years with these companies, rates do fluctuate from time to time. So it's always a good idea 3 to 5 years down the road, shop your insurance, just make sure you're in a good spot. And again, if you're with an independent agent, they have carriers there for you that they can shop for you.
Okay, awesome. Well, Michael, we appreciate your time. If somebody wants to learn more about you guys and your company, the services you provide, or if they maybe just want to, have somebody review their coverage or talk about insurance, where can they get a hold of you guys?
Just give us a call. You can call us at 804-270-1115. So this is Richmond Insurance Services. We're located right here in Innsbrook. You can hop on our website, it's richmondinsuranceservices.com. You can always get in touch with us that way. So we're here to help. We got a whole team here that's willing to help anybody.
Awesome. And guys, what I'll do is I'll link up Michael's information, wherever you're seeing the social media, email, so you guys can reach out to him if you have any insurance needs. Michael, we appreciate your time, buddy. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you found this information useful. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
Cool.